Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and I'm here today with another Virgo girl recommendation on my birthday. Yes, that's right, September 7th is my birthday, and this of course is the Virgo girl channel. I'm a proud Virgo and today's my birthday, so super excited to have a great day. And I just wanted to bring this video to you guys. I'm probably going to upload it a little late, but that's fine. I have like a few things planned, but I will try my best to upload it before midnight so it at least gets uploaded on the 7th. Without further ado, I want to tell you guys why I'm recommending George Michael / Wham on my birthday. Back when everything happened last year, the panoramic, and we got shut down. I'm in Los Angeles, so we got shut down last year in 2020. I think it was either March or April, probably closer to April. We got shut down in Los Angeles, and it was so weird for me. It was something that I had never experienced. I'm sure most of you haven't experienced this, but it was just so bizarre for me to have to deal with that. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? And of course, me being me, instead of finding more constructive things to do, I have to admit I did get into watching videos on YouTube and watching movies, because that's something that when I was a kid, that was something that I shared with my mother. Watching movies was something we did together, and we kind of bonded over movies. To make a long story short, it's something that was instilled in me as a young child, and I really enjoy movies and I enjoy television. So because of that, although I hadn't been doing much watching of television and movies, because it's harder when you're out and about and you have things to do outside of the home. But being that I was back, in a position where I would be back at home and have more time, and I was working from home, I decided, okay, let me figure out what I'm going to get into. At first, I was super bored because I'm like, nothing really appealed to me. I didn't know what I was going to do to take up the time. So I decided to go to YouTube and see what was out there. And somehow, I don't know how I stumbled upon Wham, the group Wham. Wham is an old group from the 80s. They are fantastic. And Wham is where George Michael, the singer, got his start. And the reason why I'm recommending these documentaries because they are fantastic. So I'm going to put the link below for the documentary. So if you guys do want to watch them, I will include the links below. Here's the thing. I kind of want to talk about how I got here. Okay, so somehow I stumbled upon Wham. I don't know how I stumbled upon Wham. I just did. Okay, and guys, this is kind of a story time / recommendation, just to let you know. It's my birthday, so I'm kind of freestyling it. I don't really have any kind of format. I'm just going with it. Just stay with me. So basically, I started watching Wham. And I started listening to Wham. I'm like, oh my God, their songs are great, very kind of cheesy, fun, just kind of put me in a good mood because they're so fun, and just the videos are funny. They are so 80s, and it's just something that's just like, what the hell were they thinking with some of the, wardrobe choices and things like that. But it was so cute and fun. So I just watched all their videos. And then, you know how YouTube is. Once you start watching somebody, the suggestions come. So there was so much that I did not know about Wham or George Michael. I didn't have any idea about their personal lives or anything like that. So as I researched a bit, come to find out, George Michael, okay, I'm going to briefly skim over this. I highly recommend, if you do like George Michael and Wham, that you check out some of these links that I'm leaving below. But a brief overview. George Michael, he started out as kind of a chubby, what he called unattractive kid. growing up, he had glasses, very curly hair. He did not have necessarily the best, self-esteem. He met Andrew, who is the his band member in the group Wham. He met him, when he was, I want to say 12 or 13, and then they became fast friends. Andrew was a cool kid, good-looking cool kid, and George Michael was kind of like the overweight, curly-haired kid with glasses, so not exactly the cool kid, but he said he was just kind of there. He wasn't exactly the worst, but he just wasn't, like on the level of Andrew. But Andrew, despite all that, Andrew still took him in under his wing. He said when he first started school, the teacher asked who would want to like show him around, and Andrew volunteered. And against the teacher's against the teacher's kind of like wishes, like she really wanted someone else besides Andrew, because Andrew was kind of like a class clown. I guess she went ahead and went with it. So they ended up becoming friends because Andrew volunteered to show him around the school and show him the ropes and things like that. Because he was new. He had just moved to Andrew's school, I think when he was like 12 or 13, because somehow his family were able to move to a better neighborhood or something like that. So that's how they ended up moving to Andrew's school. Fast forward, he was a writer. So George Michael was always into music and writing and things like that. As far as the sexuality thing, that wasn't an issue back then. He was dating girls. It wasn't anything really, up, because he was a kid. So there was nothing, just so you guys know, nothing there at that point in time. Then George Michael, he formed a group with Andrew. They ended up getting, they ended up doing like gigs, how all the bands did back in the day. Can I just say, shout out to all the bands back in the day who actually had to work hard, work in dive bars, and didn't just get famous from being on Instagram or something. They actually worked so hard back then. And I really think that's why those artists had such longevity, and why their songs, like I can listen to their songs right now in 2020 and they are great. Whereas a lot of artists, they could have made a song 2 years ago and I definitely would not want to hear it again. It's just the longevity, the hard work, the passion was there. I feel like so much back then. And I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. So they grinded and grinded. They were poor, they went through the phase of not, and when I say poor, they had families that were pretty much like, at that point, middle class. I guess what we would kind of consider middle class. So they weren't poor like how, because they had their families, but however, they were poor once they once they decided to, go off and do their own thing. They didn't really have a lot because they weren't making money like that. They were kind of like just staying, wherever they could. And as they had to move to different cities or whatever to do their thing, they didn't have all this money until later on down the line once they made it. Anyway, so they did their grind. They played dive bars, and then they ended up making it. They got a manager somehow, and they ended up making it. And then they started doing videos, and they somehow made it to, I watched all this last year, so I don't remember. That's why I'm including the links. I don't remember every single detail, but they did end up making it. They got a manager that was able to get them on Top of the Pops, I believe it was. That was the name of the show. Somehow somebody didn't show up for Top of the Pops. That was like their, I don't know if it was equivalent to MTV. I don't know, but that was their big show, their big showcase over there in London where they were. I think it was London. Wherever they were in Europe. But wherever they were in Europe, that was their, big place for pop stars to go. So they got lucky and ended up getting a slot because somebody didn't show up. So, and at that point, they had some songs out that were popping, so they were okay to, they weren't like superstars or anything by any means, but you know how they have like a little hit that, local hit that people liked. So, I think it was like Bad Boys. or something like that. That was the song they sang. And so people loved it. So that right there, you know how it is. It's like the defining moment. So that right there being seen on that show, that took them to another level because they were on TV and people saw them and saw that they were talented. So they ended up, you know, just growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, to make a long story short. And then next thing you know, they were doing things like Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, and all the other songs they did. I don't remember all the names right now, but I do know that I love that song, Everything She Wants. That's like one of my favorites. And it's just, I can't even think of all the songs that I liked by them right now because I have so much going on right now. But yeah, they had a lot of songs that were great. I like Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. That was a good song. And they had a lot of other, like, you know, hits out at the time. Anyway, so come to find out, that's neither here nor there. The point is, even with those songs, they had like Last Christmas. That's probably something you guys may know. Last Christmas, Careless Whisper, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, Club Tropicana, which I don't really like that Club Tropicana song that much, honestly. I don't. It's just okay. But like some of their earlier songs, they had like Wham Rap and Bad Boys, Club Fantastic, you know, things like that. They had like these songs prior to the big hits that they had, like Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, and then like I'm Your Man, you know, all those songs. But one of my favorite songs by Wham is Everything She Wants. I really like that song a lot. When the curtain drops, and then just that song is just everything to me. But so Wham to me was a very talented group. Even their songs, like when I say I don't like them that much, it doesn't matter. I can still listen to them. I can let them play. It's not like I have to skip them like a lot of songs. Like some songs I can't even sit through. I can pretty much sit through their songs because I feel like they were genuinely talented. And George Michael actually wrote those songs. He actually wrote them. So he's like a writer. He's a very talented writer. Here is the kicker. So Andrew finessed everybody. Come to find out, so basically Andrew was just his pal, you know, just his guy. So he just kind of like, Andrew was just like the looks, because back then George Michael didn't have the highest, you know, self-esteem, but Andrew's self-esteem was out the roof. He was like the cute guy. So basically George Michael was the talent, and, you know, Andrew was just there for the looks. And so Andrew, his microphone wasn't on, guitar wasn't plugged in. He was just like basically Milli Vanilli-ing it. So I was like, what? I was so shocked when I found out that he wasn't really like a musician, you know? It was like George Michael doing all those vocals. And I guess, like, I never even thought about it until I saw the interviews where people were talking about it. And then I read some of the reviews and stuff, like where people were giving Andrew a hard time, I guess back in the day, for not really doing anything, you know, in the group. He was just like, just a prop, really. But I loved how George Michael, you know, he said, like, listen, people don't need to worry about Andrew. If I don't mind doing all the work, you know, writing the songs and, you know, just having him kind of there with me, he was like, other people shouldn't care. He's like, I knew exactly what was going on, and I knew that one day I would go solo. So I'm not worried about this, you know. He wasn't worried about Andrew not putting in the same amount of work as him, you know, and I thought that was awesome. And so at the end of the day, he needed it. And life is like that. Sometimes you're not at a point, no matter how talented you are, you may not be at the point where you can just step out on faith and do something by yourself. By him having Andrew there, that's what kept him, you know, that's what enabled him to be able to be the person that he was at that point in time. And also that strengthened him and trained him to get ready for his solo career, which was, let me tell you something, that Faith album is everything. George Michael Faith, that is one of my favorite albums of all time. That album, he did that. He wrote all those songs. He was so talented. That image, that he was so good looking, and all that, that was his whole creation. He thought of that. Like, he used to only get filmed like on his left side. All of that was, he did that on purpose. He created that. And that proved to be the thing that really almost took him out. Just being that good looking, and how he couldn't handle it, you know, all the attention he got from looking like that. You know, and that's what he said. He was like, he created that. It's like he created like this monster, this person. Not a monster, but I can't think of a better word. But it's like he created this image that was something that was perfect. It was just too much for him to handle, though. And then came the whole thing with his sexuality, which that he kind of dealt with earlier on. He had already told his friends way prior to Faith. The Faith album, that, you know, he was dibbling and dabbling with men, and he was already like dating women and men, you know, for quite some time, but he didn't let it out to the public. And that's another thing with George Michael. It's like when you look at his interviews, it's almost like he's so honest, but then he's not. You know, he lied about so many things. But I understand that he was just lying to, really probably, I'm sure the label was on him. And then also the pressure back then in the 80s, you know, it was not as common and not as accepted, especially like how he emphasized it, especially not here in America. He was saying how like America, you know, they pretty much wrote him off. And they did. Like after his album, you know, Faith, it was like after that, it was like things just kind of started going downhill for him. You know, he had a little success with his second album, but, you know, nothing like Faith. And this is twofold. You know, he didn't have success because of the fact that, one, he refused to promote the album, the second album. He didn't because he said that he couldn't handle all the attention that he was getting for his looks. He no longer wanted to be that, you know, that person that was just judged for his looks, basically. And that just, you know, I don't know, that just this sex symbol. He didn't want to be this sex symbol. And that part is twofold as well. Because George Michael, I don't know if you guys have ever seen him, like from back in the day. Like, go look at him during the Faith days. He was fine. He looked so good. He was so hot. Just whatever. I mean, just he was, oh my gosh. He was such a good looking man. Go back and look up the videos from Faith. The Faith. I'll try to link some of those below too. But back in those days, oh my God, he looked so good. So good. So he had all these women like lusting after him and just like wanting him. And he didn't want, it was just too much for him. Whole time he's trying to figure out, you know, he was like thinking to himself, man, am I gay? You know, am I gay? Am I, you know, he was dealing with his own sexuality. So, you know, he had that to deal with. He had a lot of things to deal with. And even though I saw, like I said, I don't know if I said this, but I am pretty confident that I've seen almost every single interview that George Michael did. I watched it last year at the top of the panoramic. So I have seen so many interviews, and he always talked about how, like, one, when he was younger, his father, you know, your father is like a strong figure in your life, and how his father, like in the beginning, his dad was like, you can't even sing. Like, it was like really on him about this pop star thing, because he wanted him to get a real job, because his dad was like this Greek guy that came over here. He came to, you know, Europe came to London, I believe, from Greece. And he wanted to, you know, he worked hard. He made a good life for himself and his family. And he believed in hard work. And he didn't see that as, you know, a career path for his son. So he was not supportive in the beginning, because he wanted his son to, you know, do something else. So he had to overcome that obstacle. Another obstacle he had to come was his looks. He had a lot of problems with his looks. So he had to like overcome that. And then he was saying how like, even though like he was this huge sex symbol, when he looked in the mirror, he still saw himself. And I think that's a lot of times, you know, like you're your own worst critic. You're your own worst critic. It doesn't matter. Like people can tell you a million times you look good, you're beautiful, oh, you're fine, you did a good job. If you don't believe it, it doesn't matter, because you're the one that has to look yourself in the mirror every day and you still see that person. Like whatever you thought of yourself, like he thought he was like this chubby kid with curly hair and glasses. So I mean, you know, he still saw that person. Like he talked about that a lot in his interviews. And he had to get past all of that. And then once he did, I guess, kind of like come into his own and kind of like create this person, he was like, what is this? You know, with the jacket, the aviator glasses, he was like, it's kind of like he was hiding behind those glasses. And he didn't like that. He wanted to be transparent because like when you, in a lot of his interviews, you can tell he's like, just how he talks, he's like one of those people who are more like open. You know, he's not really like, he like wants to keep it real, you know? And I think a lot of times he couldn't. I watched this 60 Minutes interview that he had, and the guy straight up came out and asked him, this was like back in the 80s. He straight up came out and asked him, are you gay? You know, do you use cocaine? Like straight up, you know? And he was just like, well, I don't think that matters. I don't think I've ever asked that question. You know, like, first of all, the fact that he had to say that, you know, like you wouldn't have thought of it, I'm sure, at that time, but because of everything we know now, like, of course he was gay or bisexual or what have you at the time. He wasn't being transparent, and I think that's what ate him up. So he's the kind of person, I think, like having to lie, having to cover up who he really was. I think he's the kind of person that really eats him up. Some people, it doesn't bother them. They can lie all day. A lot of these celebrities are not even close to what you think they are, and they don't give a damn. It doesn't bother them to be pretending to be something they're not, because they know that's what they need to do in order for their career to keep going in the right direction. So, but with George Michael, he didn't want to do all that, you know? And plus he had ended up meeting someone, you know, like the love of his life. And he was just like done pretending. He was done playing these games. But he had to kind of keep it up for a while until he got outed in the bathroom in Beverly Hills. He got outed by an undercover cop, in which he said it was entrapment. He said that the cop was like doing something that he shouldn't have been doing. I'm not going to go into detail on that on YouTube, but he was saying he felt like it was entrapment, like the whole thing, like he was basically set up, you know, but it was fine. He was able to come out at that time because he solicited, you know, like the officer or whatever, supposedly, but he was saying it really didn't go that way. So it was like two sides. He has his version, and then of course they have their version. But at that point, you know, of course that was all over everywhere. And he ended up having to, you know, come out because people like, well, if you're straight, then why? But it's funny because he did the interview with 60 Minutes. He said he was not gay. He was like, but it shouldn't matter to you guys who I'm sleeping with. You should just be listening to my music, basically, is what he was saying. Like, well, what does who I sleep with have to do with, you know, the music I'm making? So he was really frustrated in that interview. And then they asked him about drugs. And he said, no, I don't do drugs. That's just not something that I ever wanted to get into, which wasn't true either, because he was saying before that they had did drugs before, you know. So when they were younger, he was just saying like, yeah, they had dabbled in drugs, different drugs and stuff like that. And drugs was a part of his life. But even in the interview, he had to kind of deny that. A lot of the questions they ask the people are very kind of evasive, and, you know, like, what? Like, people really going to be up here like, yeah, I do cocaine every day. You know, like, it's like, okay. So they were really bold. Now I feel like people they don't really go there like that to ask people. Well, I guess they kind of do, but I feel like now, I don't know, maybe they do, but just the way they ask questions to him, I feel like it was kind of tough for him at that point in time, because I think he was like in the middle of trying to get his identity together, trying to figure out who he was and things like that. So that was that. I personally feel like George Michael was really, I think his downfall, not his downfall, but I feel like the thing that really caused him to kind of spiral kind of out of control. I mean, it got really bad with the drugs, and then also, like, as far as him soliciting a lot of, you know, people like in parks and things like that. He said that was just what he wanted to do. That was just his lifestyle. He said that's just what he wanted to do. But I feel like he was really hurt behind some things. If you watch all his videos, the way he talks about America, because if you think about it, America, that's who put him on the map. You know, that's how he got those Grammys. And yeah, he was doing good, you know, over there in Europe, but in America, that's what sent him into the stratosphere. Actually, America was the reason why, even on the Freedom song and the other songs, with the crazy fans and all that attention, that's what caused him to not even be in videos anymore. He just didn't want his looks to be the main thing. He wanted to be taken, you know, seriously as a writer and as, you know, a singer. You know, he just didn't want it to just be about his looks. So that really bothered him. But getting back to America, I feel like he was kind of bothered that once, you know, it came out with him being gay and stuff like that, a lot of Americans just kind of like, according to him, kind of like, they just shut him down. You know, he was like, it was kind of sad. Like at one point, like I was watching interviews as his different albums came out. He was like, America, I'm not even worried about it, but I'm doing really good here, here, here. And then like when he would do interviews and they're like, well, how do you feel now that you're not, you know, doing like what you used to do, like since Faith? And, you know, just, you know, he was like, well, actually I'm doing great. I'm making money, you know, I'm doing great. And which he probably was doing great, like making money, because there are so many other markets than, you know, America. But America is a huge, huge market, and that's so much money that he kind of missed out on. And I think it's kind of twofold, I guess. I wouldn't have known what things were like at that time because of the fact that whenever would have been way too young to know about stuff like that. But he was saying how like America was so religious and how, you know, that was why he kind of like insinuated that was why. Now keep in mind, George Michael, back in the day, they used to call themselves, I think, did he say Soul Brothers or Soul Boys or something like that? Something with soul. That was what their, you know, I can't think of what I'm trying to say right now, but that was a huge influence. They were heavily influenced by soul music, and he just credits soul music to everything, you know, and even from the Wham days to the Faith, you know, everything. And I think that's why so many like black people like related to him, you know, at that time, because that was the root of his music. And if you watch George Michael, a lot of his concerts, like the background singers back then, they were like, you know, he had a lot of black background singers, you know, so there was a lot of soul like in his music. But then as time went on, if you'll notice, it changed, you know, he changed, and it was like a whole different sound, because I think he realized that group of people kind of like wasn't there for him anymore after all the scandal came out with him, and then with him being gay and coming out and just being more open, which is unfortunate that he felt like he couldn't really reach that audience anymore, and he lost it, because he was a very talented man. He was a very talented man, and, you know, so that was kind of unfortunate that for whatever reason, I don't know what happened. I don't know the truth. I wasn't there. I mean, I wasn't old enough to know, you know, the facts, and I don't remember anyone talking about it that I knew. I just know that George Michael was big, and then it was like he was gone, you know, as far as in America. And he even, I mean, they even, if you look at the interviews, they even talked about that, and he even talked about it. He's like, no, in America, I won't do anything. I won't even, a lot of his albums that came out, he didn't even bother. He said, I won't even bother touring in America. It was weird. It was like he just disappeared. So I guess America was to a point where at that time the stigma, plus he was out during the time where AIDS had kind of like just came out. So yeah, there was a lot going on during that time. So he wasn't welcomed with open arms. But anyway, he basically said, well, I'm not going to, I guess, let that stop me. And he just went on with his career. This video is getting kind of long, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up. But to make a long story short, I think his is a tale of how when you repress someone, it really affects them. I think all the repression, you know, him being kind of shunned by the American market and things like that, I think that played a big part in a lot of the drug use that he had, a lot of the depression that he had, a lot of the downward spirals that he had. I mean, there were a lot. And if you watch the videos, he had some really bad times, you know, where he had like, he was driving under influence. I think he was in denial a lot of the time. And, you know, he ultimately ended up dying from, you know, substance abuse, you know. So it was a lot. I think it got out of control with the drugs and, you know, and all that. And I think he tried to get clean and then couldn't. In between all this, I forgot to mention, he even lost like the love of his life. He met this guy way back in the day. This was way back. I want to say this was during the Wham, not Wham. It was after Wham. It was during the Faith times, or maybe a little bit after. But he ended up meeting this guy, and that changed his life. And that guy ended up dying of AIDS. So, but he was saying that even though they were together, he didn't test positive. I don't know what happened on all that, but he was saying that that guy had AIDS, you know, the love of his life, and he died. That affected him a lot too. And then he ended up losing his mom, who he was really close to, and that affected him. I just think he was someone gone too soon. I think if it's just a series of things that happened to him, you know, that just kind of broke him. I think all the things that happened throughout his career, you know, genuinely broke him, and it was just too much for him. And fame ultimately, you know, caused him to spiral, you know, out of control. It just proved to be too much for him. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up, guys. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. I hope to get this video up before midnight today, which is the 7th of September. Just know that I recorded on my birthday. My birthday is September 7th. But if it says the 8th, that's because I didn't have time, because I have a few things planned. I didn't have time to edit and upload it. So hopefully I'll get a chance to upload it before too late. But if not, you guys will get it on the 8th. And I hope you enjoy it. Comment below. Let me know what you think about George Michael and Wham, if that's a group that you guys liked. Did you like George Michael? What were your thoughts on him? I thought he was a very interesting man, very interesting and misunderstood man. He was a decent man. He did a lot of things behind the scenes that, you know, ended up coming out later. He's one of those too. He did quite a bit of charity work that ended up coming out later on as well, and that will be in the documentaries. He broke into the business. He did what he loved. And ultimately, it's like the price of fame. You know, it's crazy. It's like we all sit and we watch these people and you think, oh, they have all these millions and millions of dollars. They have everything that they ever wanted. And it's funny how they're just miserable. And they're just doing drugs to cope. They're just living risky lifestyles just to kind of take their minds off things. And they're ultimately very lonely and miserable a lot of times. And that's just so bizarre when you think about it, that sometimes regular people just working a 9-to-5 have more peace and happiness than these people who have millions. That's just something that kind of like makes you say, They always say money isn't everything, but You know, when you don't have millions, it sure seems like it is. Because you think, oh, if I had millions of things I could do. But it's all about that inner peace and the inner happiness at the end of the day. And that is what brings you true happiness. You have to be happy inside, because even if someone gives you $1 million, if you're still dealing with depression and inner demons, you take that with you. You take yourself with you no matter where you go. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was more of like a ramble story time session about George Michael, because I do respect him as an artist. I do think he was very talented, and I do enjoy his music, and I think he brought a lot to music. I really think, yeah, he brought a lot to music, and I enjoy listening to him even in 2021. So I think that says something, because he was way back in the day, like in the 80s is when he, you know, had a lot of his major hits. So the fact that they still play now, the replay value is amazing, and people can still appreciate his music. I think that says a lot. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe. Peace.